Good afternoon, Britannia, and hello to the rest of the world. Welcome to 2C TV. Once again, we are witnessing absolute mayhem on the streets of London. We have the Islamists on the far left creating disturbance, an unplanned so-called protest. This time it's not even largely peaceful as the media would like to believe. They are saying it was an emergency protest in defense of Hamas in Rafah, but in reality it seems coordinated because as we speak right now, we are also seeing violent scenes in Brussels, in Belgium, but also in Mexico and other countries at the same time. It cannot be a coincidence. It's definitely coordinated, but they want you to think it's just spontaneous. We just decided to come out to support Hamas. Everything's fine. So we have all this to deal with. We also have a number of videos from outside Parliament, outside Downing Street in Westminster, where the police have been clashing with the nutters. This is very, very different to what you've been used to seeing every Saturday in London with the hate marches that just go around. Very planned, very coordinated, arranged with the police to make sure, you know, there's generally speaking peace, even though the chants and the behavior is very aggressive, very pro-genocide. But this time, it wasn't even like that. They didn't coordinate it with the police. It was not planned, but they coordinated themselves privately. We have the videos for you guys. The videos go step by step. It escalates up to a point where the police, a lot of them were injured. A number of people, about 40 people, have been arrested. We also have a statement from the Metropolitan Police, which we'll go through together. First things first, let's go to the first clip. This was the beginning of it, when the nutters decided to walk towards Downing Street. So as you can see, the police were surprised that they were not informed about this, so they were all panicking. The priority was to form a line in front of the Downing Street gate to protect the Prime Minister's office, of course. But then they decided to call around because of lack of resources. They had to get police forces from around Greater London to come and help them. This continued, and of course, this was the moment that the TSG part of the Met Police, the police in general, decided to move in. So, as we said, they claimed that this was a spontaneous last-minute protest, very spontaneous, but clearly coordinated because it's happening at the same time in various other countries as we speak, Belgium, Mexico, everywhere, the US. Very violent, very aggressive, different to the Saturday hate marches where they just walk around with their families and they bring their kids to support Hamas. But this is completely, these are the militants who clearly coordinated it. And then that's why the police were surprised, because the police were so surprised that they had to basically didn't have time to have any meeting among themselves. So it actually brought out the real side of policing, the way they treat all the other protesters. For example, the anti-lockdown protesters, or for example, the British Patriots, or what's going to happen potentially this Saturday. They did the same thing for once. The police decided to go robust. They brought out the police horses, they brought out the batons, and they went very aggressive against these nutters because the Islamists on the far left were the ones who attacked the police first. So even the Metropolitan Police were forced to defend themselves. And for the first time, they had to maintain peace, let's just say. Let's go to the next video. This was the beginning of the clashes. So it was at this point things escalated, and the police officers were injured. A huge number of the troublemakers were arrested, at least 40 so far. And this was, as I said, the first time we finally saw the Met Police, bringing out the horses that they usually save for when they're, British patriots or anti-lockdowners or any sort of someone that's not a left-wing protester is out. They usually bring out the police horses for them, but they had to bring them out to form a line and to fight against these people. And this whole thing is going to backfire on these so-called protesters, because until now they've been manipulating the media and the whole of society by saying every Saturday we're just walking around peacefully, we're just doing a peaceful march with families. Wow, and the parliamentarians and the police and a lot of us have been trying to find an excuse and evidence to prove that no, this sort of stuff, that it needs to be shut down, because this is not really just peaceful democratic protest. This is disturbance, and in the name of national security, you have to do something about it. Let's go to the next clash video. Let's not forget that the whole of the establishment is responsible for this. There are a number of reasons. One, you have obviously mass migration creating a multiculturalism, which, as I always say, in certain areas it's no longer even multiculturalism, because for example, the Islamic communities, that one culture is dominating over all the other cultures. So you might have some Italians living in some place, or used to, and some Jamaicans and some English. So it's no longer even multiculturalism, because one culture is dominating over the others. And they tried to shut down pubs in East London because pubs have alcohol and alcohol is bad. They're trying to completely go against the norm in British society that, as I said, the Jamaicans and the Italians and the English are all fine with it. But now there is a pressure from a loud minority that could eventually become the majority. And this is what the establishment did. On the other hand, there's another problem that the establishment created, which is lack of order and discipline in society, lack of respect, the rule of law. When you have the education system being weak and feeble and liberal, of course you're going to also raise kids who have no respect for authority and no respect for actual democracy. So you got the champagne socialists, the white middle class, spoiled, privileged kids, alongside the Islamic ones with the smell of BO and all that problems, as usual, going hand in hand, chanting for Marxism and Islamism at the same time. Let's go to the next video. This is when the police decided to panic and run towards some of the protesters. But we just got a request in the live chat to slow down the chat mode, and we've done it now. Thank you for that. The funny thing about all this is, as I said, they claimed that this was spontaneous, right? All that, still spontaneous, right? Just normal people living in London, apparently coming out unplanned. Somehow, they managed to get thousands of them to come out at the same time, carrying identical placards and signs and flags, all funded by the state of Qatar, George Soros' Open Society, the Iranian regime, and all these guys. And apparently everything's spontaneous. They think we're stupid, and it's happening all across the whole world right now at the same time, and apparently that's spontaneous. So we have that to deal with. But the police, for the first time, they have now been forced to react, because some of the police officers got injured. So they had to arrest many of them, because this is different to the Saturday marches, as I said. Let's go to the next one. This is the protesters running away from the police. And now you see why they have to cover their faces with face nappies, right? Because they don't want to be identified by the police. Now the police can tell. Because every Saturday they do the same, but they don't attack the police on Saturdays. So the police are like, well, that person's covering their faces, but they're not doing anything crazy, so let's just leave them alone. Well, you didn't do anything about it then. Now they come out on the streets, as we speak, to attack you. Now you have to identify them, but you can't. That's the problem. Now they have arrested a lot of them. And a lot of people are suggesting bring back the water cannons. Forget about the water cannons. In any normal country, the police would at least use the tear gases. But no, because of liberal policing in this country. No, that's too mean. That's too mean. When you have terrorists and terrorist sympathizers attacking you on the streets, you can't use tear gases. That's a little bit mean. Really? The country is going down and you're worried about liberal policing? You're not dealing with democratic protesters who are just protesting against the government policy, for example. I don't know, about trade unions or taxation or nationalization. This is against our fundamental values and the fundamental freedoms that we have, democratic freedoms, and they want to bring it down. And you're still worried about water cannons and tear gases being a little bit too mean against literally terrorist sympathizers who are chanting for Hamas. We have to be nice to them. But the police, again, with limited resources, they managed to actually do a good job last night because they were forced to. They were cornered. They're like, well, they didn't have time to have a meeting with Mark Rowley, the head of the Met in London, and of course, Sadiq Khan. So they had to actually do a spontaneous reaction, which means actual policing. That's what they had to bring out the batons and, of course, arrest so many of them. They are also, these Islamists and the far left, showing their true faces finally in London. We've already seen this sort of footage in New York and across the world in general, but in London they managed to keep it be seen as largely peaceful. But obviously those who know what's going on, they know the chants every Saturday during these protests, genocidal ones, but physically they've been saying, we're just marching around London, what did we do, right? That's what they've been pretending, but now they're showing their true faces. There's another issue, which is about what's going to happen this Saturday, 1st of June, which I'm going to talk to you in a second, but let's go to the next video, clashes between the police and the nutters. They literally, one of the slogans and the chanting is no justice, no peace. So they are literally sending you a warning saying we will not let you have peace until you get us what we want. So why is the establishment or the police or anybody else, politicians, surprised when they get aggressive? You're not giving them what they want, they demand, because they are spoiled and self-entitled. You have to give them what they want. You can't negotiate with these nutters. So that's why they say, well, you're not going to give us what we want, we're going to do no peace. So this Saturday, obviously, we've now finalized the plans with Tommy. He's going to be speaking, I'm going to be speaking, there'll be a few others as well. I am going to make a prediction right now. There will be, they call them counter-protesters, but it's not a counter-protester because we're not protesting, it's a rally for Britain. We call them protesters. There's going to be a group of protesters, so Antifa, the far left, and the Islamists, they're going to be there on Saturday in London. But I'm also going to make a prediction that they're going to infiltrate their main rally. They're going to get a few of their people. They're going to come, cause trouble, attack the police, and they're going to blame it on the rest of us. And then the BBC and Sky News are going to create headlines saying, well, British nationalists, the far right, are out to cause trouble. How many times do we have to expose them? Every single time they do this, and we identify the people who infiltrate, and then they repeat the same tactic, because the media are really, really interested in using that against us. So Saturday, while the police have reassured that it's going to be peaceful, everything's going to be great, they're going to protect the main rally against the counter-protesters, but they're just protesters, we'll find out what's going to happen, because on Saturday we're also going to have the Islamist side anyway doing their own march. So eventually there's going to be some sort of disturbance, let's just say. So they're either going to infiltrate our group, or they're just going to try and disturb the whole thing, which then is the job of the police to actually protect the British patriots. Instead of using the police horses against them, against us, they have to actually protect the actual people at the rally. So let's go to the next. This is the final one where the police finally took control of the streets in Westminster. Finally, it only took them about 3 hours, but they finally managed to take back control of the streets in Westminster, London. The police then posted this, that the officers made 40 arrests. That was at the time, but you're going to have more today and tomorrow, during a protest in Westminster on Tuesday evening. Regrettably, 3 officers were injured, 1 seriously. That's why they had to go strong. The details. Let's look at the actual statement itself from the Metropolitan Police, because it's important for people to also know how they are phrasing it. So, a protest organized by a coalition, including the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and other groups, took place in Whitehall from 6 p.m. Conditions were imposed under the Public Order Act, requiring the protest to end by 8 p.m. The vast majority of those in attendance, estimated at between 8,000 to 10,000 people, left without incident at the required time. However, a group of around 500 remained in Whitehall and continued to protest, putting them in breach of the conditions in place. Officers engaged extensively before making a number of arrests for failing to comply with conditions. As they moved in, some in the crowd resisted, physically requiring officers to use force to extract those who had been arrested. The protesters then set off on a breakaway march, making their way as far as the nearby Bridge Street outside Westminster Tube Station, where cordons were put in place to detain them. Then they say further opportunities were given to allow the group to comply with conditions. They were also informed that their actions were causing an obstruction of the highway. Shortly before 10 p.m, officers wearing protective equipment began a series of arrests, going into the crowd and extracting those suspected of leading the breakaway protest. In total, 40 were arrested for offences including breach of Public Order Act conditions, obstruction of the highway, and assaults on emergency workers. Others were dispersed from the area. The details were taken, and they were informed that they remain under investigation in relation to the events on Tuesday evening. Those who refused to provide their details were also arrested. And of course, 3 officers assaulted, 2 sustained injuries. The third one, a PC based on Central West Command unit, was left with a serious facial injury when she was struck by a bottle thrown from within the crowd. The suspect for the assault has not yet been identified, but an investigation is underway. Of course, they have body cams and also CCTV in the area, so they will be able to identify, unless they're covering their faces again as usual, which would not be a big surprise. Hopefully the police will be able to also find them as well. Again, it says get the water cannons out. As I said, it's not just about the water cannons. Why can't we just use normal tear gas? Apparently it's too mean, guys. King Sonny says, we should be shutting this down immediately, but as usual, they'll get protected. So there is now a good opportunity. If it weren't for stupid Rishi Sunak calling this snap election, if we actually had a workable government in place, this is the perfect opportunity to actually use it as evidence that these hate marches that you see on Saturdays, the same people, they can get aggressive, they can get violent. And this is, at this point, with the chance that they're making as well, they're doing treason. So it's a perfect opportunity to actually ban it, because this is not a democratic protest. This is just disturbance and violence. But we'll see if they do anything about it. Malcolm says, arrest a lot of them and ban the protest. It's been going on too long now. There is nothing wrong with peaceful protesting, but these people are far from peaceful. Yeah, it's not a protest, it's just anarchy. James says, this is great news. It might wake the numbskulls, aka the police, what is coming. Will the police chiefs just say cheers again? It can't. Even they can't at this point. They have to act on it. Right. first super chat, the Onyx Codex. Thank you so much for the support. Also saying, when artificial intelligence is used to impose the strictest form of Sharia law on Muslims in Muslim majority countries, they will beg for leniency. Well, that's an interesting point also to bear in mind. Panzer Chicken says, attacking the police while chanting anti-Semitism, and shame on you, pathetic. Becky Twinging says, at last the police are reacting. Silent majority, wake up and fight against this madness and know who our enemies are, who hate us and our democratic ways. Saturday, 1st of June, is a perfect opportunity to send that message. If you want to join us, between 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. we're meeting outside Victoria Station. Then we're going to march towards Parliament. The actual gathering outside Parliament is from 2 p.m. where the actual speeches will start, and this idiot Maya Tusi is going to make his speech as well. I've heard of him somewhere. And of course then we're going to obviously deal with the nutters as well, in a democratic and peaceful way. That's just super chat from Kenny Andrews. Thank you so much for your support. And Peter Green is back saying, and Toxic Rainer, Angela Rainer, wants to legitimize this lot. Yeah, she literally went for a meeting with the Islamic men to beg them to vote for the Labour Party. I love how she thought that they would respect her. She's a woman. Do you really think they respect you as a woman? Idiot. Elmar says, how stupid are those Islamists? The British or Western governments cannot force a ceasefire. I know. How many Western governments have we had over the last 6-7 months that they've been trying to force Israel to do ceasefire? Ceasefire as in IDF to surrender to Hamas. That's what they mean. Macron has been saying it. Justin Castro Trudeau has been saying it. The rubbish Justin Bieber. And all the others, obviously, a sleepy Joe Biden. No one cares. You have no say. You have no power in the Middle East. Let alone a bunch of smelly protesters walking around the streets. Mike says, thank you for the support, saying this was probably a tryout for Saturday to see how far they could go the police into action. I only hope that our lads on the first hold firm and do not react irrationally to the Islamists. Of course they will. There will always be a few. You've seen them all the time. There's always a few in when it comes to British patriot side, British nationalist side. Sometimes after a couple of pints of beer, sometimes even without beer, they come to cause trouble. And they say it. I've spoken to them and during the live streams. Last time was the St. George's Day. Remember St. George's Day? It's not a protest. It's literally St. George's Day. They came, cover their faces like idiots. And they were like, whoa, yeah, we're going to here to cause trouble. Like, what are you doing? And obviously Tommy Robinson was there and all the others. And you use the microphone to tell them to shut up. Just calm down. Do not give them any excuse. But there's always one or two. And as I said, the other problem is that the left are going to be sending their people to infiltrate the rally. And they're going to basically cause trouble, pretend to be English like patriots. And they're going to say, oh, look what the far right did. But it was their people. Every single time we try to expose them, the establishment don't listen. Alexandru, thank you, saying bring back the Knights Templar. Too late for that. What you need is a proton pack style jet wash. They'll send a strange out of the neighborhood. Yes, we also have a super chat from Israel. Hi, good looking. Oh, don't they all want to take a helicopter flight? Yeah, send them all on a helicopter ride in Iran on the mountains in a rainy weather. That's a joke. Before the police knock on my door again saying, were you mean to people? Were you mean? Stop being mean. Stop the controversial jokes. Anyway. All right. Henry says, keep up the great work, Mike. How do I donate? You don't need to donate. What you need to do is join 2C TV Plus. Go on 2c.tv or click in the link in the description. Join us. Get access to premium shows and the best way to keep us independent. Otherwise, as I always say, I'm going to go sell out to the big corporations. It's a threat. Take it seriously. Kay and Joey super chat saying no sympathy for the police. Well, we're going to need their support on Saturday, so. Mike from Australia, thank you. Also, Sinner Saint says, I wonder what the mainstream media will make of this, considering, according to them, it's always the Israeli protests that's violent. They're not really focusing on it properly. They just said there was some disturbance after the protest in Westminster. It's the same thing over and over and over again. Anyway, there's so much to talk about today. We're going to come back later on. We're going to focus on the South African general election. Oh, that's going to be a beauty. And we're also going to talk about the BBC doing a bit of a slander against Nigel Farage. And we have some very exciting breaking news, almost breaking news update developments as it's going from Brussels, the heart of the Death Star, that is the European Union. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe to 2C TV Plus. Go on 2c.tv if you want to get access to all our premium shows and support this independent channel. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.